Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trailokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita, Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva, Tvameva Vedyat Radinam, Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Would you poke the little box, please? Hari Om. I'm so sorry about the parking tonight.
Okay.
I did not. Did you have to park far away?
Found a spot near Target. I did a walking meditation.
Yes. She was all set to chat.
You can tell.
So where are we in our text?
We're on verse 34.
Verse 34. So we finished with our qualifications of a fit student. We did that one short verse on qualifications of a teacher. And now Shankara enters into a section of just succulent poetry about the poor neurotic student and how unhappy and suffering he is. So let's go on.
34.
Yes.
Tamaradhya gurum bhaktya prahava praschayas savanahi prasannam tamanuprapya prichhe myatavyamatmanah. Worshipping that Guru with deep devotion, when he is pleased with your surrender, humility, and service, approach him and ask him to explain what you must know.
So, in the tradition, the Guru tests the student. Even Jesus had the phrase, one should not cast pearls before swine. It's pointless to try to give the Vedanta to someone who's unable to receive it. This is why in Vedanta we don't proselytize. We can announce that we're giving a class or a teacher is in town. But this is not for the masses. Never has been. Never has been. And in the tradition, the teacher would test to see if the student is really ready. course, the classic example of this is when Nachiketas goes to the hall of Yamaraj, Lord Yama, Lord Death. What happens when he's there?
He waits outside for many days.
For 3 days, with no water, no food. Yeah. Lord Death had an excuse. He was, as Swamiji would say, out of station. Then he comes back, and then Lord Death says, I'll give you a boon. Then Nachiketa says, when a person dies, are they or are they not? And Lord Death says, don't ask that. Let me give you wealth. No. Let me give you power. Let me give you long life. Nachiketa says, no. That's what happens. So he tests. And if you watch the story on a quest, which is Chinmaya's journey, and he gets all the way up to Rishikesh, Swami Tapovanam says, where's your letter? A letter. You're supposed to bring a letter from Shivananda. Didn't give me a letter. Go back and get a letter. Now, he had to walk all the way back from Uttarkashi to Rishikesh and back up again. This was a test. Tapovanam didn't need a letter. Now, frankly, I'm not one that pokes and pushes very much. I think life does a pretty good job of that without my help. But Guru, as a principle, will test us. And then we have to argue in our mind. Earlier on, Shankara had said, who can argue for the scriptures and refute arguments against them? Because we will all hit a point. Is this worth it? Maybe it's all superstition. Maybe I should just be happy getting married and having a career and getting drunk on Fridays, Why not? What all my friends are doing. So life will test us. And here it's framed in the more exoteric way. When the teacher is pleased with your surrender, then the Shisha asks him or her what I need to know. Going on.
Swammin namaste nataloka bandho karunya sindho patitam bhavatho mamudharatmiya kataksha drishtya trijavyati karunanyasut trijavyati karunan sudhabhivrishtya. O Master, O friend, of those who reverentially surrender to thee, thou ocean of mercy, I salute thee. Save me, fallen as I am into the sea of change, with a direct glance from thy eyes which rain nectarine grace supreme.
Yes. So again, this is Shankara at his poetic best. Beautiful, beautiful poetry. But there are principles here. So the Shisha surrenders to the Guru. And I think one of the things that's implied is something which we call drishtipat. He says, oh, save me with a nectarine glance of thy eyes. I love the story when Chinmaya was a teenager, he was still Bala, and he decided to go visit Ramana Maharshi. When he gets to the ashram, to the satsang hall, there was no room for him to sit. So the only alternative was for him to go all the way up to the front. Bhagawan was lying on his couch in samadhi with his eyes closed. Balaji sits down in front. I think he was like 18 at the time, something like that. And then all of a sudden, let me see if that's someone trying to get in. No. Bhagawan opens his eyes and looks right into Bala's eyes. Never says a word. And after a few minutes, he just closes his eyes. That was that Shaktipat. Patati, to fly or to fall. It was transformative for Bala. He walked away and he had obviously been put into another state. And then, because he had no context, he said, he hypnotized me. But he never forgot it. So sometimes the Guru will do this. Swamiji used to do it. He looked deep into our eyes, to himself. Then everything would just fall away. Next verse.
Durvara sansara davagni tattam dodhuyamanam duradrishtavate Vitam prapannam paripahi mrityo sharanam manyadhyadaham na jane. I am being roasted in the blazing internal fire of change.
Internal or infernal?
Oh, infernal fire of change.
That means hellish.
Hellish. I am being tossed by the cruel storms of misfortune. I am terrified without and within. O Lord, save me from death. I seek refuge in thee, for I do not know of any other harbor wherein to seek shelter.
Yes. So we have this idea of sharanam, a harbor or a shelter. So many chants. Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha. I take shelter in Ganesha. So here the Shisha says, I'm a mess. And I don't even know why. I don't know what the problem is, but I intuitively sense you've got an answer. And I know of no place else to turn. Now, the relationship between the Guru and the Shishya is also karmic. Not everybody gets the same grace from the same teacher. For me, meeting Swamiji was absolutely life-changing and everything I wanted. Other people didn't have that experience of it. And it also here illumines the great love that that Shankara had for his teacher. That's all hidden underneath. Beautiful, beautiful poetry. Going on.
Shanta Mahanto Nivasanti Santo Vasanta Vallo Kahitam Charantaha Tirna Swayam Bhiva Bhavarnavam Jana Ne Nahe Tunanyapna Pitarayantaha. There are peaceful and magnanimous saints who live like the spring season for the good of humanity. They have crossed the dreadful ocean of finitude through their own efforts, and with no ulterior motives, they also help others to cross it.
Yeah. So you have nothing that the teacher wants. The teacher can't be manipulated. You can't get their approval or disapproval. You can't buy their attention. And that can be a frightening relationship for those of us for whom all our interactions have been transactional. Nothing I can do, nothing I can do. And for many of us, it's our first experience of real, unconditional love. The only thing the teacher wants for us is that we wake up. No greater joy. It's funny, I was watching a YouTube today of an African elephant mother in a preserve. I mean, they were out in nature, and she was giving birth. So you could see the sac come out, and then all of a sudden plops onto the ground. The baby starts to move, and she starts to trumpet and trumpet and trumpet. It comes around and starts to kick the baby. That's how they, it's like we spank our babies. The elephants kick them a little bit. Then all of a sudden, this herd of female elephants just comes rushing. They were so happy to welcome a new baby. It's like that. There's such a joy. Someone wakes up, sees what's real. Next verse.
Ayam Swabhava Swatata Ayam Swabhava Swata Eva. Oh, actually, this is a different meter.
Yeah.
Ayam Swabhava Swata Eva Yatpara Shramapanodash Pravanam Mahatmanama Sudhanshu Resha Swayam Arkakarsha Prabhabhitaptam Ati Shakti Kila. Indeed, it is the nature of the magnanimous to help remove the troubles of others, even as the moon of its own accord cools the earth scorched by the flaming rays of the sun.
Yeah. So the ancients thought the sun radiated heat and the moon radiated coolness. Just as it's the nature of the moon, they thought, to radiate coolness and cool the earth at night. So it is the nature of the women and the men of knowledge to radiate beatitude into this world. Next verse.
Brahmananda rasanubhuti kalitaihi bhutaihi sushitair yutai yushma tvakalla shojijhaitaihi shruti sukhair vakyamritai sechaya santaptam bhavata padavada anjwalabhirenam prabho धन्यास्ते भवति क्षणगते patrikrita swikritaha. O Lord, thy nectarine speech, honeyed by the elixiric bliss of Brahman, pure, cooling, issuing in streams from thy lips as from a water jug and pleasing to the ear, do thou shower upon me, who am tormented by earthly afflictions as by the tongues of a forest fire. Blessed are those who have received even a passing glance from thy eyes, accepting them under thy protection.
Again, this is Shankara waxing poetic. Wonderful joy and beauty that he experienced, having found his guru. Brahmananda rasa, juice, bliss of Brahman. We get a chance to taste in the presence of the mind. Next verse.
Katham tareyam bhavasindumetam kava gatirme katamo stupayah jane na kinchit kripayavamam prabho sansara dukkha shatimatnushava. How to cross this ocean of relative existence? What is to be my ultimate destination? Which of the many means should I adopt? I know nothing of these. O Lord, save me and describe in all detail how to end the misery of this life in the finite.
So, this is an intelligent Shishya. Notice what he's not asking. Oh, Guruji, how can I get a raise at work? Oh, Guruji, should my cousin marry that girl? Oh, Guruji, should I buy this house? Many, many people bring those kinds of questions to the Guru. Some he may answer out of just human wisdom, but that's not using the Guru. You want to use the Guru. Ask the important questions. The Guru has an expertise. How to get out of the suffering of this world. Here the Shishya has another very intelligent question. I've read a lot of books. I watch YouTube videos. They're all telling me different things. What if I'm caught up in spiritual bypass? What about my karma? Do I have to raise my kundalini? Do I have to give up sex? All these things, we get all these teachings on. Which of the means should I adopt? What's important? So if you want to learn physics, you go to a physics professor. If you want to learn engineering, you go to an engineering professor. You want self-realization, you go to. Why? Because if he's like Shankara has described, he's walked the path, from their own experience, knows some of the pitfalls. Kind of approach towards what's important. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
New section, section 10. Loving
Let-
advice.
Let me stop right there. I'm going to give you some loving advice from the Guru. What usually doesn't work is what I call supermarket spirituality. You know, I'm going to drive my cart around the supermarket and I'm going to take some squash and then I'm going to take some salad and then I'm going to take some fruit and then I'm going to go get some cheese and then I'm going to go get some yogurt. We approach our spirituality that way. I would take a little bit from this tradition and, oh, I kind of like that practice. Oh, this really attracts me. I think I'm going to get into that for a while. And, oh, I'm going to do that. What happens is we stay on the surface. Now, there's a place for this at the very beginning of our path. But where we get results, now listen carefully, Advaita Vedanta, the tradition in which I have been trained, is not the only valid means of knowledge. It is a very powerful valid means of knowledge. But it's not the only one. But if we are serious, we need to find a teacher in a tradition and go into depth. Some teachers will say, after a certain point, if you want to continue study, you can't be involved in other traditions. Do the Goenka people say that eventually?
They do.
Yeah. Swamiji never did. I never have done that. But it is important to go into depth. Now, another piece. I did not become a Vedantin because I was attracted to Vedanta. I knew nothing about it. My journey started with a relationship. I met this Swami, and he had what I wanted. And if he'd been a Buddhist, I'd be a Buddhist. If he'd been a Sufi, I'd be a Sufi. This happened to be his path. And then I chose to surrender completely to him and the tradition. Any thoughts on this? All right, going on.
Section 10. Loving advice of the Guru. Tatha vadantam sharanagatam swam sansara davan lapatapattam nirikshya karunya rasadri drishtya tadhyadi bhitim sahasa mahatma. As he speaks, afflicted by and seeking protection from the conflagration of the fire of samsara, the noble teacher looks at him in all pity and kindness and spontaneously bestows upon him protection from fear.
So we get what Swamiji called a borrowed glory. If you notice here in my home, as you leave the front door, you look up on the sill and you'll see a little Ganesh. You guys ever noticed that?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned it before.
Yeah. That's because you're supposed to leave your heartache and confusion with him as you come in. You don't need to consciously know it. You'll just eat it all. Come in here. Many people have the experience. Now, it's not just the relationship with the Guru and our Shraddha, our faith. We talked about that one last week. But here, literally hundreds of yogis have sat in meditation in this room over the years. They've left a vibration. People can feel it. People can feel it. It's become sacred space. And you who have come have helped make it so. And it becomes a shelter, a sharana. Next verse.
Vidvan satasma upasatti mishyushe mumukshve sadhu yathokta karine prashanta chittaya shamantivaya tattvopadesham kripayaiva kuryat. To him who in his anxiety for liberation has sought the protection of the teacher, who abides by scriptural injunctions, who has a serene mind, and who is endowed with tranquility, the master should pour out his knowledge with utmost kindness.
So here's an injunction to the teacher. If a fit student arrives, you have a duty. Now, true story. Way back in 1969, maybe 68, I'm like 20 years old. I was a mess. Didn't know what was going on in my life. I started to experiment with smoking some dope and stuff like that. And I dropped out of school. And I didn't know what to do. And I'd gone up to the Vedanta Society a few times. So I made an appointment to see what we call the old Swami. I think it was Swami Prabhupada, the one who was Christopher Isherwood's guru, who would come up from LA. Went in and I asked him to teach me to meditate. He looked at me and said, "Are you in school?" And I said, "No." He said, "Are you working?" I said, "No." I was living on student loans at that point. He said, "Do you do drugs?" And I lied and I said no. But he could see my aura. He said, "When was the last time you did drugs?" I said, 2 weeks ago. It had been the day before. And he said, "Go home and either get back in school or get a job. And when you have been off of drugs for 6 months, then come and I will teach you to meditate. I couldn't do it. I wasn't ready yet. Here was a perfect man of knowledge right in front of me, a great Vedanta. But I wasn't pure enough. It took me another 7 years before I was pure enough to see the Guru. And that's Swamiji. True story. True story. Next verse.
Shri Guru Vacha Mabhaishtavid Vidantava Nastya Payah Sansara Sindhosta Tarane Stupayah Yenaiva Yata Yatayosya Param Tameva Margam Tavane Dirshami. The Guru said, "Fear not, O learned one. There is no danger for you. There is a way to cross over this ocean of change. I shall instruct you in the very path by which the ancient rishis walked to the beyond."
Yes. So, this is an incredibly important verse. People will frequently ask me why I use these dusty old Vedanta texts. And I do so because I'm going to instruct you in the very path that the rishis had walked to the beyond. I do my best to be a pale reflection of my Guru, Swamiji Mayananda, who not only became a man of the deepest wisdom, but learned the tradition from his Guru, Swami Tapo, who learned it from his Guru, who learned it from his Guru. So if the teacher can wield a valid means of knowledge, then things start to happen. There have been many gurus who try to make up their own yoga. All I can tell you is I'm not smart enough to do that. But you can have faith that the tradition that you're getting here is the real stuff. Like I say, this text is powerful. If you do everything Shankara suggests, virtually guarantee self-realization. How many of you have been working on those qualifications of a fit student, by the way? Hope we haven't lost any of you yet. Work on it. Work on it. Any thoughts? Again, this is not the only valid means of knowledge, but it is a valid means of knowledge and has been proven effective right here in our modern times. Next verse.
Astyupayo mahan kashi chat sansara bhayanashanah Tena tirtva bhavam bodhim paramanandam apyasi. There is a supreme means by which you can put an end to the fear of relative existence. By that you will cross the sea of samsara and attain supreme bliss.
So many of us may have the doubt. Maybe there is no way out of samsara. Maybe it's all superstition. It's a way for the gurus to get your money. Maybe the answer is cryptocurrency. Hear the guru thunders. There is a way. Meet me there. It's true. It's true. Next verse.
Vedantartha Vedantartha vicharena jayate jnanamuttamam tenatyanti kasansara dukkhanasho bhavatyuno. The highest knowledge arises from the sincere contemplation upon the meaning of the Upanishad mantras. By this knowledge, immediately a total annihilation of all sorrows born of the perception of change takes place.
So, where is this supremely powerful means of knowledge found? Vedanta vicharena, by means of inquiry into the deep meaning of the knowledge that's in the Vedanta, Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, meaning the Upanishads. The Upanishads concern one topic alone. What is the nature of a human being and how that human being, for want of a better word, participates in, is identical with the infinite. Now, in the Upanishads, it's in a language that's incredibly allegorical. It's a secret knowledge. It's almost pointless to try to study an Upanishad without the help of a teacher or a good commentary. That's a teacher in print. But we say that Bhagavad Gita is the milk of the Upanishads. Here, Vedavyasa has called out of the Upanishads the major ideas and put them in this wonderful story form. That Swamiji used to say, Vivekachudamani is the cream of the milk of the Vedanta. So Shankara, in his brilliance, has taken the teaching of the Upanishads and then set it forth in a systematized way for our benefit and in beautiful poetry. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Shraddha bhakti dhyana yogan mumuksho mukter hetu. Actually, this is not the same here. Shraddha bhakti dhyana yogan mumuksho mukte hetu bhakti sakshat sharutergihi yo va eteshvev tishthyat Nityamushya moksho vidya kalpita deha bandhat. Faith, devotion, and the practice of meditation. These are mentioned in the songs of Shruti as the chief factors that help a seeker to attain liberation. Whoever pursues these is liberated from the bondage of the body, which is a projection mysteriously accomplished by his spiritual ignorance.
Yes. So he starts by saying this is what we need: faith, devotion, and long and continuous meditation. And then he begins to give us our first clue into what our problem is. It's this bondage, this identification with the body. Gaudapada will use the term jiva bhavana, the feeling I'm a person, that I'm an individual. How has this come about? Through spiritual ignorance. I'm not being punished, not because of my terrible bad karma and other lives. It's not because God hates me. It's not because the world sucks. Root of the problem is avidya, my ignorance, which causes me to think I'm the body, or the body plus the personality. Any thoughts on this going on?
Ajnana yogat paramatma manastava yanatma bandhasta evam sansritihi tayor viveko ditabodha vahini prajnana karyam pradeheta samulalam. It is indeed through contact with ignorance that you, who are the Supreme Self, experience yourself to be under the bondage of the Not Self. From this misunderstanding alone proceeds the worlds of births and deaths. All the effects of ignorance, root and branch, are burnt down by the blaze of knowledge which arises from discrimination between these two, the Self and the Not Self.
So, why do I suffer? As the fruit of my ignorance, I think I am the not self. When I'm in that state of ignorance, I think I'm a person, and that is an inherently incomplete state. There's just not enough. I want more. I'm not even sure what I want more of, but I want it different. And then the mind posits a goal. I either need to fix or change the world, more, better, different, or I need to fix or change me. I'm not enough. I'm not big enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not handsome enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not rich enough. Then arises struggle, kartavya. No one has explained it or phrased it more vividly than Shakespeare. Causes us to grunt and sweat under a weary life. That's what we do. Convinced the cause of my unhappiness Sometimes the world isn't right or I'm not right. Shankara says what the Upanishad's thunder is. It isn't ever going to work because you're not addressing the real problem. The real problem is in my mind. I've superimposed upon myself these false ideas. I'm a person, the world is separate from me, and I need to make ego-driven efforts. The ego keeps trying to fix. And yoga says, if I can get out from under the ignorance, all of it comes tumbling down, root and branch. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
New section. Questions of the disciple.
Okay, now, for those of us who are studying this pedagogically, beginning, Shankara allowed us to stay identified with the physical body. Then, as we moved into the qualifications of a fit student, he allows us to be identified with the subtle body. Now he's going to shift and start a whole nother section, which essentially is Atma Vichara, inquiry into the nature of the self, which has as its principal practice discrimination between phenomenal objective stuff, anything knowable, and the knower. And so he sets it up with the famous 7 questions. Now, for all of us taking the class, memorize the 7 questions. When you get confused of what's it all about, go back to these 7 questions. This is the important stuff the Shishya should ask. Going on.
Shishya uvacha kripaya shruyatam swamin prashnoyam kriyate maya yaduttara maham shrutva kritartha syam bhavan mukhat. The Shishya said, kindly listen, O Master, to the questions that I now raise. Hearing their answers from your lips, I shall feel entirely satisfied.
Yes. These are they. Let's listen to them. Next one.
Ko nam bandha kathamesha agata katham prathishthasya katham vimoksha ko sa vanatma param ka atma tayor viveka kathame tuchattam. What is bondage? How has it come? How does it continue to exist? How can one get out of it completely? What is the not self? Who is the supreme self? And what is the process of discrimination between these two, self and not self? Please explain all this to me.
So, these are the 7 questions. What is bondage? How does it come about? What makes it continue to exist? How does one get out of it completely, not just for 20 minutes of meditation? This is very subtle stuff. What is the not self? Pronoun change. Ooh, is the supreme self. What is the process of discrimination between the two? The self and the non-self. 7 questions. I like you to memorize them. Most of the rest of the book answers these 7 questions. Any thoughts? Going on.
Section 12. Intelligent disciple appreciated. Shri Guru Vacha Dhanyosi Kritakrittosi Pavitam Te Kulam Tvaya Yada Vidya Bandhamuktya Brahmi Bhavitu Mitchasi. The Guru replied, Blessed you are, for your wish to attain the absolute Brahman by freeing yourself from the bondage of ignorance. Indeed, you have fulfilled your life and have glorified your clan.
So, Swamiji used to use this example. So here you are in the Bay Area, and you've got to make that long flight back to India. And there's traffic. You've packed your bags, you've gotten your visas if you need them, your passports. You get to the airport and you have to go through the security line and then wait at the gate. And finally, the plane arrives, the other people get off. And finally, they board your flight and get on the plane, find your seat, you put your stuff in the overhead, and you wait for another 20, 30 minutes because there's backup on the runway. Does this ever happen to any of you? And then finally, the plane taxis onto the runway and it waits there. And then finally, the captain comes on the PA and says, flight crew, prepare for takeoff. You know when they say that? How do you feel then?
Excited?
We're on our way! Very soon, Roma, you go. India, here I come. So what the Guru is saying, spiritually, by the time you get here, by the time you've asked these questions, you're on your way. You glorified your clan. You fulfilled your life purpose. Wait a minute, I'm just getting started. Don't worry. That you are subtle enough to take up the study of Vivekachudamani, that you have a real interest in this, you're on your way. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Beautiful verse. Almost once you get this far. All right, next verse.
Section 13. Glory of self-effort. Trina mochan kartara pitu santi sutadayah bandhamochan kartatu swasmadanyo na kaschana. A father has his sons and others to save him from his financial debts, but to redeem himself from his delusions, there is none but himself.
So there are certain things in life where we can get help. So if you've got a father and he drinks too much and he gambles away his money, thank God he sent his kids off to America. When they get into IT, they can save him from his debts. But if he's deluded, blah, 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 he has to fix that himself. Next verse.
Oh, these three verses actually are together.
That's all right.
Should I read them together? Or?
Yeah.
Mastakanyasta bharate dukkhamanyai nivaryate Shudhadi krita dukkham tu vinasvena nachet pathyamosha dhasevacha kriyate yena rogina arogya siddhi drishtasya nanyanushthina karmana. Exhaustion and fatigue caused by carrying a load on the head can be relieved by others coming to one's help, but none save one's own self can end the pangs caused by hunger, etc. The patient who faithfully follows the right diet and takes the proper medicine alone is perceived to recover from his illness. No one recovers because another undergoes the treatment.
So the old lady has gone down to the tank to get water, and she puts the jug on her head, and she's too old, and her neck's wobbling. She says, "Honey, will you carry it for me?" So her daughter can carry the jug. But what was the thing he compared it to? Was disease? Taking medicine?
Yeah.
Well, I have this condition, and the doctor has given me this nasty tasting medicine. So I'm going to hire Puneet to take it for me because it tastes so awful. Will that work? You might get well, but I won't. Each of us must take a medicine ourselves. And what was the third, the last verse? I forget.
Oh, the last verse was the medicine.
But what I skipped one. So after the fellow with the weight on his head.
That was the second one, and the third one was the medicine.
Okay.
Right diet and medicine.
Yes. All right. So what he's pointing at here is many of us, especially Indians, have this one. They have the superstitious idea that the God is going to do it, or Guru Kripa. All I have to do is go to the most powerful guru, get Vibhuti, and that's going to fix things. In the West, we have a form of it that I call armchair grace. St. Paul says we're not saved by works, but we're saved by grace. There's truth to that. But there are a lot of evangelicals, for example, who will say, I've accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I don't have to do anything else. I'm already saved. So I can rob, cheat, and steal because I'm already forgiven. Doesn't give us freedom. Sure, that will give you salvation. So, Purushartha is the term, Paurusham, own self efforts. Well, doesn't grace figure into this? I mean, those of us who've looked at Raja Yoga, Patanjali talks about Ishvara Pranidhana, trustful surrender to God. And the way to reconcile these two teachings, because we can't storm heaven. It's not all about our own self-will. The Christian saint, St. Augustine, says, pray like it all depends on God. Work like it all depends on you. So we have to cooperate with grace. There's a very famous Zen proverb. Enlightenment happens by accident. Zen makes you accident prone. So we invoke grace by our own self-effort. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Vastu swarupam sudabodha chakshusha svenaiva vedhyam natu panditena chandra swarupam nija chakshushaiva gyatavyam anyera vagamyekim. The actuality of things is to be known by a first-hand personal experience through the eye of clear understanding and not through the report of learned men. The beauty of the moon is enjoyed through one's own eyes. Can one appreciate it through the description by others?
So what he's striking at here is that some of us think, I'm going to get enlightened if I just read enough spiritual books. If I just read enough stories of the saints. I can sit here in my chair and I go, oh, and I can get all inspired. That's not it. Nothing wrong with that. That kind of inspiration can serve to help as an engine for abhyasa, practice. In the tradition, we talk about paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. But we need aparoksha jnana, direct experience. In Gita, Krishna will talk about jnanam vijnanam cha. Jnanam, understanding. We need it. Vijnana, sometimes translated as wisdom, but it really means our direct experience, which comes as the fruit of practice. Practice is our own purusha, purushartha, self-effort. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Avidya kama karmadi pashabandham vimochitum kashaknu yadvinatmanam kalpakoti shatairapi. Who else but oneself can help rid oneself of the bondage caused by the chains of ignorance, desire, action, etc., even in 100 crore of kalpas?
So, the idea that the guru is going to save me, or I'm going to pujari to do puja for me, or other people are going to pray for me, by all means utilize these methods if they help build your faith. But we must do the work. one of the words that we're going to come across for the work is tapas. Tapas literally means heat. The mind is ruled by the law of inertia. The law of inertia is that a body in a vacuum at motion or at rest will stay at motion or at rest until energy is applied to change it. The asteroid is moving through space until another body hits it and puts it on a different trajectory. So you and I have habituated modes of thinking and feeling. These deep sanskaras, these deep vasanas. We've spent lifetimes developing them. There's no magic bullet. There's no pill. There's no ayahuasca trip. It's going to fix it. We have to undo the habituated tendencies of the mind through insight and practice. And this generates heat. Change the flow of the mind into new channels. It's resistance. It does take effort. No other way.
Jim,
Yes.
does the effort have to be painful, or is that where the Viveka and Vairagya comes in to recognize that I don't need to be so
That's
in
very
suffering?
individual, and it depends on the habit.
Okay.
Sometimes, if we are inspired, we can move in a new direction out of inspiration.
Hmm.
Sometimes, no, we have an attachment and we don't realize that it's going to be painful to give that up. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
So it depends on the person and it depends on the issue. But if it's a deeply rooted habit, there will be resistance.
Okay.
Do you know anybody who's ever tried to quit smoking after several years?
Myself, yes.
Was it easy to do overnight?
No, it was really hard. It took decades.
Mm-hmm. That's called tapas.
Okay.
Classic example. Was it painful? Well, probably not as painful as the coughing. Now, when we get to subtler things like my compulsion to worry about the future, and weird ones that we can, be perfectly fine with the end of the world. But the stock market, I'm totally attached to that. And when it goes up, I'm happy. And when it goes down, my 401k. It's amazing, the little things. Or I can be attached and not even know it to the approval of people. Someone says an unkind word and I'm wrecked for the day. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making sense. I'm being very spot on.
Welcome to the human condition. One of the things that you will see in this book, you are such a textbook case of spiritual ignorance that Shankara wrote a book about you 1,300 years ago. Now that should give us all comfort.
Hmm. Yes.
Well, welcome to the world of the yogi. You're just an average, ordinary yogi. And there's great joy in that.
Hmm.
Yogis make it. Very
Yeah.
good question. Very good question.
Thank you.
All right. I think we'll end here tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om.